Rumors of paranoid zealots, common tales of how dryads came to be on the plain of cedar, and the real story of the island of sorrow, which then became the Wasting Key. If the sound of these tales have piqued your interest, come and sit a while with Old Mother Nonsense. Curl up somewhere comfortable with a plate of cookies and your beverage of choice. She will be having coffee. An unlocked history of the Wasting Key is a conveniently forgotten and covered up continuation of the childhood tale. It would do younglings well to remember that the history found in books is often one-sided. Only the keeper of time, Old Mother Nonsense, was there to see both sides of this particular story. The first year of the Sixth Age, the Aeon of Indulgence, about the time one autumn fay princess was being reminded that she was, in fact, not a man. An unlocked history of the Wasting Key. A long time ago, as the tranquil times had just come to an abrupt end, it would seem that Urukwa, the father of dryads, was destined to be alone on the empty island of sorrow forever. And it would have been just so, younglings, if Castleton, father to Urukwa and now passed on, had not predicted that this might very well be the case. With this fear in mind for his son's survival, Castleton had secretly prayed to the Ill-Slayer, the very same deity, you might remember, who marooned him and his family on the lonely island some many moons ago, to send someone who would be willing to continue the blood sacrifices, send someone to keep the wings of Zatulta, the spirit of the island, filled with crimson and awake. His fear was so great that the god heard him and roused the ocean once again to bring another ship, this time from across the flat deep. His muse did not approve, arguing with his All-Slayer that the mortals upon the ship were not the same, and had no business stepping foot, hoof, hide or hull on the land of the Soulforger. The most stubborn of all gods disagreed with the opinion that the mortal had asked him for blood, insisting that it was a divine warrior he had chosen to carry out the task. Their disagreement lasted many months, and caused the seas to toss and tremble so violently that, by the time the ship reached the island, Zatulta had indeed gone completely dormant once more. The ship was captained by a Namako, a winged warrior of maroon plumage, fire-touched hair, and a restless soul, Captain Ravessa Ronvoli. She, dearest younglings, was the kind of woman whom no one would dare to so much annoy, let alone make angry, for fear of sparking a rage so great the very skies trembled with the power of her strikes. It was this very same Captain Ravessa Ronvoli who was now very annoyed indeed to find her ship and crew cast away to a nearly uninhabited island halfway to the end of the world. The dirt was hard and dry, even on the beach where they made berth. The trees were short and bare. It was not the island she had seen in visions from her god. She sent her soldiers out in search of supplies, so they may continue their journey, to rest with this side quest. They would away towards the Sunderwick Shallows, where they would battle with Kongor against the deep and blasphemous mortals of Consela. Spotting a trail of dry grass, Ravessa followed it into the decayed underbrush to find a bear, near dying in a circle of dried thorns. She notched an arrow to put the creature out of its misery, when a man, with green vines growing from his very skin, appeared before the creature. She kept herself hidden and watched. The man placed his hand on the desolate earth and grew a young sapling, full to the brim with berries. The bear must have eaten the sapling over 50 times while Ravessa stared in disbelief and awe, but the plant continued to grow back until the bear had had its fill. She stepped out and made herself known to the man. We, younglings, know who this man is, don't we? And she demanded he grow such plants for her and her soldiers to eat. Urukwa refused, replying that only suffering could make the earth grow here, and that he would meet her again, when she was about starving to death. Infuriated by the evidently fey spirit being uncooperative, Revesa almost drew her sword on him, when a few of her men found the two and presented their commander with a tablet they had found. The blood of the lost for the island of sorrow. The Namako demanded her men capture the Fae before she drew her dagger and killed the bear, spilling its blood over the once sacred space. She cut out its heart and had her men hold the uncooperative sprite's head back and mouth open as she let its life force drip down his throat. Urugwa screamed for his lover to protect him, and Flora burst forth towards the resting place of the last sun, but it couldn't reach. Many, many years of loneliness had made him weak. Revesa grinned at her discovery of how to bend the spirits of the island, and imprisoned him in her camp, while her soldiers picked the small patch of land barren. It was only when she asked why they had not brought the whole plant that she was informed that it didn't grow back. It was then that Revesa understood why her deity had sent her here. Combat, though glorious, was a glory shared. Before her call to arms by the sea, she had been stationed in Britch to control the lawbreakers and lost souls that had cowardly fled to the shifting lands. To rid Cedar of such undesirables would be a glory that she, and she alone, would hold. She dubbed the island the Wasting Key, and sent forth her soldiers to bring back architects to build her a prison, the most fortified that had ever been built, and then she filled it with the worst of the worst, men and women, young and old, mortal of both the sun and deep, all who had done the unspeakable and turned to evil desires, thoughts, and deeds. No one was exempt from her absolute and unchallenged rulings over thieves, traitors, murderers, and deserters. If found guilty in the eyes of Captain Revesa Ronvoli, execution was the one and only sentence. In a courtyard of stone and iron, the irredeemable would have their heads removed from their shoulders and strung up like cattle for their blood to drip down into her copper pools. The pools would drain at sunrise and sunset, and in an isolated cell beneath the prison of lost souls, Urugva, falsely convicted island of sorrow, would be fed and the land would thrive. If found innocent, well, they were so few and far between, younglings, that no one really remembers if any were. It took 200 feedings for Urugva's flora to reach the base of the volcano, 200 more to climb it and begin its descent towards where his husband slept, but it would never get there. The stalk that had been broken so long ago left a chasm between them. 400 lives, the number to realize that he was alone, that his lover was never going to wake and come for him. Urugva cried out as 401 became the number upon which he would finally begin to drown in blood. His pain was felt by all his children and all those who had come after in their lines. Most of you hearing this tale will certainly be too young to remember, but that day the keepers of the natural world held their collective breath and sobbed with their father, even though not a single one had ever known him. It was heartbreaking, seeing the plants he'd been reaching out for nearly a decade start to wilt as his vision began to grow black. A single green leaf clung to the broken stalk with everything it had left, but it was not enough. It fluttered down, a gentle breeze swept it into the hollow where Zatulta lay still as stone, and it landed within his claws. The offering housed within that tiny folio throbbed with the fear of a once loved and 401 souls lost to the will of a madwoman. Pain, terror, and despair ripped Zatulta from the Mirrorlands, as though from a terrible nightmare. Every broken soul, guilty or not, screamed at him to wake up. Zatulta tore himself from his bed and charged up the stalk, leaping with inhuman strength across the chasm that separated him from the outside. His claws dug into the dying Flora as he raced towards the mouth, and he only stopped when he felt Urugwa's cries become silent. He had awoken too late. A thunderous roar shook the wasting key at its very foundation, splitting rock and pouring forth magma to spill over the island. The toughest of beasts that still remained screamed in agony as they caught fire but didn't die. The very soul of their island poured his sorrow for his lost love into them, and they rode the rivers of fire to Captain Ronvoli and her prison of lost souls. 401 days the island laid waste to everyone inside that accursed place. The whole plain felt the repercussions of those dark days, some believing the goddess of games had come once again. Clouds of ash blocked out the sun. Acid rain turned the Arset Sea blacker than pitch. An unending fire lit up the western horizon for over a year. By the time there was nothing left, half of Cedar was rightly terrified, and the other half stupidly curious. Today, younglings, convicts of the worst kind are still shipped off to the wasting quay to be sentenced by the now unforgiving elements. Scholars who have adventured there speak of a noxious fog that surrounds the island for a kilometer at least, as magma still sludges into the sea. Beasts, singed and charred, drink from rivers of hellfire, and the once inescapable prison of souls now lies in ruins. Those who have returned, youngling, have never recovered completely. A deep-seated and unending sorrow taken hold in their hearts that no amount of adventure, nor treasure, nor love can overcome. They waste away from it, drowning in unprovoked misery and despair. They manically mutter and insist that a beast, unlike any other, roams the hills of ash. They say it is digging through brimstone, as though looking for something, a monstrous creature of the before times, with fire in its wings and gold upon its arms, broken-clawed and faceless. It cries through the nights, causing whoever hears it to become filled with a sadness as deep as the emerald ocean and as vast as the tundras of Consela. It has been over 1,000 years now that not even the great and controversial University of Mesnen has given explorer or adventurer permission to go there, not even in the pursuit of knowledge. So no, I wouldn't suggest a trip to the Wasting Quay. It isn't a very nice place, though there may still be one more soul buried beneath the prison, lost and calling for his husband, unheard through the layers of molten rock in pain. Were one to unite them, that one may just find themselves indebted from the last son of the Soul Forger, and his love, the first dryad. More life lessons for nonsense younglings. The life lessons to be gleaned from this part of the tale are thus. The Wasting Quay is only to be holidayed at if you can provide your own accommodations, preferably of the fireproof variety. And should you venture to make offerings, especially those based on a tablet you find without context, double check that the one you offer to is indeed the one it is meant for.